Hey everyone, I'm Ryan. So, um, what? No, come on, what? Ugh, you know what? Okay, no, I'm not gonna restart recording because that happens every single time I try to record, where I have some form of like a running thing to say in my head, like maybe the first 30 seconds or so, and then I fumbled some of the way through, or I changed my mind, and then I'm like, you know what, I need to restart. It needs to be perfect. But then, no, I'm not gonna do that. Screw it. I'm keeping this in because this is exactly what I'm trying to fight against, and it's one of those things that, I mean, yes, it is probably, part of ADHD and probably amplified even worse now that I'm kind of, you know, coming off of the meds. But anyway, before I talk about that, yes, I am aware of just how Stone Age this camera quality is. Maybe let's see if I can do something to improve it a little bit, in another video or something. But anyway, it's kind of funny that like the last video I made was like no excuses and like I should. It was basically a calling out to myself, like, you know what? I'm gonna record this stuff and just put it up to upload, and then nothing ever happened. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about ADHD meds and kind of some things that they don't really tell you about, some of the experiences that I now have over. I mean, I think it's just been over a year now since I've started, I think. Um, and it's weird. Like, I'll be brutally honest. Being on ADHD medication is a very strange experience. And I'll be honest, it's kind of a difficult one just because I don't know, I guess the best way to really explain this, especially, you know, one you haven't like tried ADHD medication, like as treatment, or if you've just started, like maybe there are some early signs of what I'm going to be talking about, perhaps. But anyway, best way I can describe it is like, I mean, again, I don't necessarily know. Like, I'm not an expert, right? I'm just a dude in his bedroom. And, it's funny. Like, as I'm trying to get through this, like, there's the common, there's like this constant thing in the back of my head that's telling me to just restart, just do it again. And it's like my forehead starts to get tight every now and then. But it's strange. It's like the more I address it, the more relaxed I become. So maybe, I should take it a lot less seriously. But yeah, you know, I'm just a regular dude. I don't got no medical degree or anything like that. Not a psychiatrist. Sure, I studied for my bachelor of psychology, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm qualified in any way to make assumptions about anything. And I'll be honest, ADHD was something that I never particularly thought was an issue with me until, of course, the more I explored about it and got exposed to the world of it, it made a lot of sense. And do I regret that? I don't know. Because it's a life changing experience being on the medication. And I don't know, it's kind of difficult to talk about because I don't have a definitive answer or decision in my head of how I feel about it as a whole. Like, I do feel still that this is kind of in its early stages, and perhaps maybe because I'm in India, like maybe, the people who essentially are helping with the treatment of this aren't as equipped themselves to really discuss it correctly. I'm not entirely sure, but or maybe I'm just making up excuses for them. I don't really know. But the thing is, there are some truly okay. I don't really know if the mic will pick that up, but my dog just started barking for God knows what reason. If I had to assume, it's probably because my brother would have come back. Maybe it is a bit late. It's like 10:53. But anyway, um, as I was saying, yeah, it has some great benefits. It really does extend this feeling of clarity. So I think that's what I want to first start with is what exactly does being on these medications, what does it feel like? Well, those moments of clarity, right? Like those rare moments you may get where suddenly everything lines up, everything makes sense, and everything that you're doing, you can make sense of it. It feels perfect. Like it's like in those few moments, right? Like when I don't really know why for an ADHD person those moments are very rarely triggered, or they're only triggered at, let's just say, not the most convenient of times. The times that I've felt it is either when, okay, in the best case scenario, when I am doing something that I enjoy, and it kind of like just keeps building up like a huge amount of dopamine, and then for some reason it releases the sense of clarity. And sometimes when like I'm really stressed out and lost, like especially, the couple of hours before an exam, which I absolutely didn't prepare on, and I don't feel the fear. Instead of fear, I suddenly get that clarity, which comes almost as a form of excitement, and I suddenly understand everything. And I get excited for that moment because I understand, and I almost like I keep telling myself in that moment that I'm gonna go back home and read this and do all that, blah blah, but it never happens. And so those clarity moments is what I feel the medication does. Now, as you can probably guess, um, when you don't have those moments of clarity pretty much all your life, it's always dispersed in like tiny, inconvenient, and unpredictable times. You tend to have the worry of, or at least psychiatrists, and of course, just in general, that I guess it is a obvious conclusion to come to is that the medication can be addictive. Now, is it addictive? I don't know. Me personally, I'm not entirely sure. Now, I do tend to have strange addictive tendencies, which means that on a normal sort of like bare bones kind of, what's commonly negative things to be addicted to, like different types of substances and all that. No, I never had an issue with that. But the other side of it, the clean addiction, the stuff that looks fine on the surface, but in reality is just as bad. Gaming addiction, I mean, I was so addicted to Counter Strike like many years ago that like it really just, yeah, I mean, it just wasn't great. And I think as of late, a new addiction of this overworking, or a work addiction, I suppose, or workaholic, is something new that's popped up. But it's weird. It's like when it comes to things that I know, is supposed to be addictive, it's like I'm extra cautious, but at the same time, that itself is an addiction, right? In my opinion, where you kind of over analyze everything you do. And if there are slightest tendencies of being addicted, it's like you instantly just back off and you go like, I don't know, a different space and time, I guess. Also, yeah, I do apologize for zoning out there. The more I talk about this, I'm starting to get the natural sort of clarity releases. It's not from the medication because it's well past, time when it's run out and the after effects are there. But anyway, I do want to continue further because, I do want to talk about some of the downsides, but for now, let's just keep continuing with just how it feels and all that. So yeah, I mean, once you're on it, it's that, level of clarity. And obviously it doesn't instantly make you into a super genius or anything like that, but it's more like the things that you really do like, you genuinely can put time into and perhaps some of those tasks that before were either arduous or perhaps just like you could not get yourself to sit down and do it. Um, Now you can, right? And a lot of the things that I've always wanted to learn, I finally am able to sit down and learn and understand it than like trying to rush through it. And I think that focus, that focus and clarity and all that kind of thing is what makes it such a useful tool, I would say, than necessarily a treatment. And I think that kind of should be, first flag of a oddity with it, in the sense that it is, I think, better to be treated as a tool because as a medication, I think it threatens more to a change in personality. But is it really a change in personality? I don't think so. I think it's more of a chemical shift when you are on, let's just say, a much higher dose of this type of medication. And again, I'm not sure if this is how it works in other countries, but at least here in India and the psychiatrists that I go to, they don't particularly give a whole lot of advice regarding the meds, A lot of it is up to me to decide what I need and if it's too much, too little. And I don't know. That's kind of why I'm making this video, because if there is someone else who perhaps is in a similar situation and is getting, there are positives, negatives, and like there's all this stuff kind of happening, but you just can't seem to process what's going on. I'm hoping that this video kind of helps, perhaps clear some of that up to maybe give a bit more context to perhaps what's going on. Or maybe to those who have friends, who are taking ADHD medication, what exactly is happening to them. So, yeah. Um, I think it's about time that I talk about some of the negatives because, um, yeah, no, I mean, it's not like I was trying to push this too much to the end. It's more like I think by now I have most of what I need to say ready, so let's get to it. So, as I mentioned before, it can feel like you're changing as a person, right? Like, considering perhaps before there were a lot of things that you used to do quite regularly, were perhaps really good at. Now, you're suddenly not so good at them. Perhaps you've completely forgotten them. Perhaps you've even completely just, lost all skill or memory of these things. And again, it's a weird balance because some of them were bad habits, so I understand why they're gone. But some of it, I don't know what to make of it, you know? And I think it's not necessarily a, you know, like the medication is taking away your personality or anything like that. I think it's just quite literally just another part, the more focused part of you, the one that, at least for me personally, you know, like had less emotions involved, which is particularly kind of a difficult thing for me as I've already not the most expressive person when it comes to emotions. Even the people who have gotten really close to me, it's like I'm just such a closed off person. I only reveal so much of myself when it's convenient. And it's like the medication, I wouldn't say it amplifies it. It's more like it already creates the logic and I don't even think about it. It's like my brain is doing a lot of the processing without really asking me, if that makes sense. It's like I know something is not really going to be worth it or emotionally kind of useless. So most of the time, I don't even have an answer as to why I wouldn't want to do something or engage in something. It's like my brain has already processed it and it's instead just left a basic answer. Just like, nope, you won't like this. And there are a lot of times where it's wrong, but there are also a lot of times where it's right because there's like for some reason a very specific thing that my brain is trying to like get done, like an itch to be scratched. And I think that is something that's a bit tricky to kind of get around. Where I think my impulsivity has over time become a little bit worse. It's a lot more focused, like it's not as branched out, but there are times where I get hung up on things that really don't matter in that moment, and I lose sight of everything else. Like, it doesn't happen always, and that's what's weird about it, is like, I get this tunnel vision just every now and then. And again, it's not like before, where, like, let's just say the tunnel vision is yay big, but like now it's more like when the tunnel vision happens, it's like just barely, you know, big enough to, just not be something that looks like it's concerning. And I think that is where the issue lies in. It's like a lot of what's happening is just subtle enough that it doesn't feel wrong. But then the more, like, let's say relationships take a bit of a toll, even your own just general physical and, of course, mental health does take a toll, you start to wonder, what happened to me? Wasn't I different? Where did that part of me go? And, well, I do think that it is perhaps just one part of it, you know, the side effects. And this is not to mention the expected side effects of the drop off and just how horrible that feels. It literally genuinely feels like every like nasty chemical is just like tearing at you. And perhaps it's, amplified for me just because of the amount that I end up having to take. But it's an uneasy feel, and I definitely would not want anyone to go through it, at least without being informed of it beforehand. And it doesn't always have to be that way. Sometimes, if you match your schedule correctly and sleep on time, you probably won't even feel anything. Unfortunately, there are days you can't do that, such as the way for me. I can't really do that today. I have some stuff to do. Heck, I have this video to upload. But yeah, um, I think another thing, of course, is the. I feel like there are many things that are kind of on the fence of are they a good or a bad thing. But you know what? Then spending way too much time on this section because I think a lot of it I'm not entirely sure how I feel about yet. But there is one thing that is a bit tricky to talk about just because of the fact that I don't, again, entirely know what to make of it. And that's the fact that a lot of it does well. It feels right. But then there is a whole lot of it that I feel like, again, is taking away from my more emotional side. So I think those side effects are what's the most difficult to handle because I'm already someone who has difficulty picking up emotional like cues and certain social cues. And this being another thing on top of it that basically suppresses it even more, basically turning my logic meter like all the way up. It's not good. I mean, the benefit, of course, is that when it comes to certain tasks and things that are definitely more mundane, I can really like hyper focus and do all that shebang. But then at the same time, it means that I'm cutting out a lot of the other stuff without really even thinking about it, and it's not good because I do feel a lot more alone for sure. Even if there isn't anything inherently wrong, and I think that's what's screwing with it even more. And so I think that's why, as of late, I've been not only reducing the medication, I've also been trying different schedules to try and see if that would help shake it up. Today, I think, was probably the more beneficial experiment of normally, so for this medication, generally you'll be paired with like either a long range or short range or a combination of both. I have a combination of both. And I've been taking the long range primarily for the last couple of weeks. And today I decided to take the short range in the morning along with the long range. And you know what? It seemed to have made a difference, though the thing is that the drop off is different. So, on the long range, what would happen for the drop off in the middle of the day is I would feel really sleepy or whatever, and I'd have to just lay down for a bit. Not sleep, just lay down on my back for some reason. And then I would get some energy back. Now it's strange. Yeah, it builds up all this energy and it needs to be released somewhere. Of course, some form of sexual release helps sometimes, but that is finicky. Because, you know, sometimes it may not help, but actually it may just make it worse. Sometimes just the timing of, I don't know, doing something fun, maybe having like a, what, I forgot what they're called, but like for heart palpitations are these medications you can take. Um, yeah, no, I still haven't figured out how to tackle that middle of the day, just feeling for this, but I'll figure it out. Um, Also, don't worry. I think it's just like my entire like tiredness is like set, and it's like my brain is giving me a lot of dopamine right now. Like I feel unnecessarily warm right now. Like it feels weird because I know I'm not doing anything. Ooh, wow, that is so weird. Like I can feel it shooting down my arm and making my body feel warmer. But I'm not doing anything that's particularly, in my opinion, deserving of the dopamine that I'm getting. This is like the type of dopamine that like I would get if like I don't know, I just did oh, like figured out or cracked something that I was working on for a long time. I feel like I should be feeling some form of fear or paranoia in this moment, but instead it's like my brain keeps sending signals of happiness, and dopamine, and just pleasure. Something is odd. Um, okay. I guess I'll just have to keep a note of that for now. Well, anyway, I guess I'm not gonna waste any more of your time. Um, yeah, I am going to just listen back to this, and if it sounds okay enough, I'm just gonna upload. I'm not gonna think about it. Yeah, that's about it. See ya.